that really allows me to segue into what I feel is a very important piece of this whole experience and this remembering and the information and even the work that I do supporting other people who are transitioning and who are remembering. And so we talk about densities, or at least for me, I understand it in densities. And so having duality and polarity in the human experience is what allows us to play within the spectrum of separateness and oneness, right? And so we need the duality, we need the polarity to really understand what separateness is. And what I recognize is that the more separate we believe ourselves are from source, from consciousness, from everything that is around us. And I tend to see that more in individuals who lean into what I perceive as the third density or the human experience, the material experience. And as we lean more into the material experience, separate from nature, perceiving ourselves separate from nature, not moving into natural spaces, not working with our nervous systems to move out of a hyper stimulated space of activation of fight or flight that's continuous due to the material world that we humans have created. And so when we're consistently in that space, we create separateness. We are continuously leaning into the Maya or the polarity or separateness or duality. And duality is so important because without duality, it's very difficult to remember you are source. If we think about all the changes and all the growth that we've made in our lives, in our human incarnation, it's usually through contrast. It's usually through resistance. It's usually through challenges, right? And so we need that pressure, that duality, that constriction to better understand our experiences and what we want to lean towards, what feels of a resonance and what doesn't. We automatically know when we're in a place of resistance that we're resistant to, or we're in a place of duality that doesn't feel right. We're like, I don't want to experience this. This doesn't feel right. And we know that, especially if you bring up the subject of love, when you're in a partnership or with somebody and it doesn't feel kind, we know this doesn't feel like love. This feels like manipulation. This feels like control. Like this doesn't feel like pure love. And it's that knowing of this doesn't feel right that allows us to turn and shift and start looking for what we feel love is supposed to look like and feel like. And that's as we deprogram from what we've learned in the human incarnate, from society, from culture, from family dynamics. So as we let go of what we thought was love, then we can start moving towards what we truly know love is and what it should feel like and what we want it to feel like. And that's duality. And as we move towards what we know real love feels, we start to find it within ourselves. And then that is the removal of separateness. That is coming back home to self. Because as we lean into that innate understanding of what like that raw love is, we find it within ourselves, which means that we can then start seeking it externally outside of ourselves and others who have also resonated with that understanding of love. So that is the importance of friction, resistance, duality, polarity. Those we can use those as tools. So in awakening the remembering of oneness in the third density of the human experience, we can start to move towards oneness and unity consciousness in the human experience through becoming the observer of self, through leaning into the space between big S self and little s self. So between the soul and the ego, between which ultimately collapses the illusion of Maya, right? And then questioning and unlearning. So as we question everything we think we know, what we think we know about relationships, what we think we know about love, what we think we know about source, religion, even our education, through questioning and unlearning and challenging our own beliefs, no matter how mundane. Question them, challenge them, and seeking commonality in everyone you meet and how they reflect flaws and all. So the more you dislike an individual and you feel triggered by them, that is a mirror calling you in to understand what part of them that you dislike is actually within you. And when we can lean in and we can start to see that we have more in common, even with those we don't like, we can't stand, who irk us, who we feel are evil or bad, we start to diminish the illusion of other and self. So we start to merge. And so gratitude changes perspective and brings awareness of natural abundance. And source is abundance. And every one of these experiences that I've had, the feeling of bliss and pure love came with abundance of everything is perfect. Everything is exactly how it's supposed to be. And everything I need is actually all around me in consciousness and in energy, right? So source is abundance, and your natural state is abundance. And also using nature to co-regulate. It is our vibrational timekeeper. Nature is so incredibly important. And we're watching our forests being destroyed. These are our timekeepers. These are our sacred spaces, our wombs of gestation. These are incredibly powerful, sacred spiritual places for us. And it is paramount that we create resistance and we push back against those who are wanting to destroy what is essential for us on a human level and on a spiritual level. And two more is to play with the edges of your being and allow yourself to merge with others, losing sense of where they end and you begin. And I recommend doing this with nature first. You really must trust another individual, not trust what they say, but trust where they're at before you merge with them, because you're merging energy, which is a byproduct of beliefs, of behaviors, of mindsets. And you want to make sure this person's at a similar frequency. To merge with somebody who is at a very low vibration can be impactful and not in the best of ways. So I recommend using nature first. Allow yourself to merge with a tree where you lose sense of where you end and they begin, where the space between starts to collapse. And depression and anxiety, fear, desire to numb, distract, or turn off is natural when we lean too far into the egoic self, into the Maya. And so forgetting and distinguishing our relationship with self. So when we start to feel these, they are the canary in the coal mine that we're losing sense of our spiritual self. And Dr. Lisa Miller wrote an incredible book called The Awakened Brain. And it is scientific data on the research of brains of individuals who have awakened and actually how it affects the brain. And those who have awakened have a greater resistance to depression. And if they do fall into depression, they move out of it very quickly. Whereas those who have not awakened or stepped into a spiritual life and recognizing that they are one with everything around them and everyone tends to lean into an unhealthy mindset, which leans into depression, anxiety, fear of everyone around them. Everyone's out to get them, right? Very skeptical of those around them. So I hope that additional information supports you.